Ani bonjour, everybody. My name is Bailey Walkie. I'm the founder of Frayed Feathers and the host of the Frayed Feathers podcast. I support teams to create youth reconciliation strategies, and I have this podcast to inform youth responses across Canada. I've been working with young people for the last 13 years, from public policy to restorative justice to even hip hop dancing. And today I want to talk to you about why I believe facilitation and the art of facilitation is the key to successful youth reconciliation projects. So I've spent over $10,000 and about, I want to say, 200 to 300 hours of my time in training just to learn how to better facilitate meetings. And I felt like it would be helpful to synthesize some of that information for you folks today in this podcast. So let's get into it. So, the definition of facilitation is the act of helping other people to deal with a process or reach an agreement or solution without getting directly involved in the process, discussion, etc. yourself. And so the facilitator's role is to guide them through a process and not to be like a quote unquote hero, so to speak, that provides the answers. Similarly to like a consultant who would analyze information, do some interviews, and then give recommendations. A facilitator sits outside of the process, outside of the conversation, and ensures that the conversation is sequenced, visualized, and recorded. And we'll get into what those things mean later. But a facilitator's job is to get the best out of everybody in the room, and they constantly are reading the room to see what is working. And if they see the team is stumped, then they're going to be creative about removing any barriers, blockages that people are experiencing. And so why I feel facilitation needs to be practiced is because it's really hard to facilitate and to critically think about something. And so oftentimes on youth reconciliation teams, projects, etc., we'll get into meetings and we just kind of look to the person who has the best public speaking experience or prowess, skill set, whatever you want to call it. And we'll just be like, hey, can you facilitate the meeting? But you're kind of removing like a mind from the conversation by doing that. Not even if you're not saying like, hey, you're excluded from the conversation, just facilitate, by giving them the role of a facilitator. I mean, that's all they can really focus on, like even for like meetings where you're facilitating and taking notes, usually you have a note taker, you know what I mean? In addition to you facilitating, like it's really hard to do facilitation and a lot of other things. And so anyway, the reason why that's important is because like the crux of it is that a lot of people on youth reconciliation teams, projects, etc., they're subject matter experts and they're hired to do research and analysis. But once you're tasked with implementing any of the recommendations that are being put forward, aka if you work on a team, you're not a consultant, like you're actually doing the implementation work, you're going to be forced to facilitate to get results. And it's not, like you're going to be engaging new partners into what you're doing. You finished a project. Oh, okay, let's do this great thing. Oh, we found this is our findings or what we heard report from engaging young Indigenous people. And you're going to be having new work meetings or new meetings to develop working relationships. And, it's these meetings, they're not just about talking about your findings. It's not like you're going to go into the meeting and you're going to get the result you need. Like, you need to facilitate in order to receive the results you want. And in this case, being like buy-in from people and like getting to a point where you can decide what you can collaborate on, or, presenting the idea of, hey, this is our recommendation based on the findings we've had. We thought you folks would be great in this, be in a good position to support us in this, and kind of facilitating that whole process, to facilitating the meeting to get to that result. You can't just show up to a meeting and be like, let's do this thing. Like a lot of people need to kind of like be brought into the process, and you do that by facilitating, not only doing good things in the meeting, but like the onboarding and all this other stuff. So we're going to kind of like unpack a little bit about facilitation and like all the amazing stuff that goes in it. But for this episode of the podcast, I just want to talk about like the outcomes of facilitation and like what makes it a worthy skill to progress on. Yeah. So in my opinion, facilitating meetings is about respecting everybody's time. So if you show up to a meeting and like you don't have an agenda, you don't have a goal, and you're not paying attention to like how the information is being received by everybody, so you can like kind of support that momentum, then you're essentially asking somebody to spend more time with you to get to the result eventually, which is not a good way to build working relationships, in my opinion. We should be trying to respect people's time as much as possible because in the youth reconciliation sector, it's so small. There's like so little people doing this kind of work. And so by learning skills that can give us a good return on time investment, I think that's going to be a worthy skill. And no matter what your subject matter might be, whether you're working in resources, you're working in the public sector, giving a supportive program, or you're working in governance of some sort, you're going to benefit from being a stronger facilitator. And I'm making this podcast about youth reconciliation projects, but really a facilitator in any context is going to be a positive upskill. And so anyway, too often do we show up to meetings like with no agenda, no goal, and we expect to identify next steps within like an hour or something like that. And I don't think that that's a good use of our time. And so where am I going with this? Oh yeah. So anyway, collaboration is really challenging, and I think the main reason it's challenging is because we're not taught to do it. If you go to school for however amount of time, you're you're taught how to do a certain function within a system. Like education is important to like look back of like where it came from, and it sprouted from the industrial era, meaning that there was these big systems that needed cogs, so to speak, needed people to implement some work so the system can function. And so that's what a lot of schools were designed for, like school curriculums. Hey, do this exact function and yada yada yada, and this will be your job. But in policy, in academia and all this stuff, like we, I feel like facilitation gets easily overlooked because it's all about like the intellectual, right? It's all about like the ideas and the recommendations one can move forward on. But if you don't know how to actually coordinate humans to get a result to work in a system, then it's going to be very challenging to actually see results from your recommendations. Like we can tell people to do whatever we want, but if we can't work with them to get to that result, then we're going to be severely handicapped, or I should rather say, we're going to be severely challenged to overcome that barrier. And so anyway, like I've gathered some stats here, and I just felt like it would be helpful for folks to hear this. And all these stats are going to be found in the description as well. I'll put a link with all the sources. But basically, collaboration and the poor execution of it is leading to a lot of people losing productivity. And when you lose productivity, you lose money and people burn out. And when you have good talent, you want to keep them. And so it's very, very important to get good at collaboration if you want to save money and if you want to keep your talent around. I know for me personally, I spent 10K and 300 hours learning how to facilitate meetings better because I was so fed up and I was like, I'm just going to learn it myself because like, why am I staying in this meeting? You know what I mean? Most of the time, like the meeting has so little momentum in the conversation because we're just collaborating so slowly because nobody's prepared that like people are looking at emails. They're like reading other things and they can still contribute to the meeting. Like that's that's something we should be questioning to be honest. Like we shouldn't be treating meetings like podcasts. Meetings are where a lot of really big decisions get made. Meetings are actually really important to have, but we can't just be thinking meetings for the sake of meetings. We need to think of like how can we facilitate the meetings the best way because meetings are time and time is valuable. Anyway, to the facts. So this one here, there's a virtual collaboration tools report is from 2002. It's by Aludo like all you do, Aludo, lol. Anyway, allyoudo.com. It says here 64% of participants claim that poor collaboration is costing them at least 3 hours per week in productivity, and 20% claiming they are wasting as many as 6 hours per week. 41% of employees have left or would consider leaving their job due to poor collaboration. So just in this set of facts alone, because I've got three sets here, you know, just think about 3 hours. Okay, I don't know about you, I can get a lot done in 3 hours. Okay, but here's the thing: if you spend 3 hours in meetings that don't have anything to do with anything, whatever, you're just wasting time because they spring more meetings. Well, you had to spend probably another 15, 30 minutes after that, after each of those hour meetings, to get back into what you were actually wanting to do. And like, I don't know about you, but whenever I'm writing, I kind of need to like get into a flow, right? Like I need to read some stuff, do some pre-read material, get sharp, and then I can write effectively. If I do that, I'm in my writing flow, I'm in a meeting, go into a meeting, and then get out. I'm not just back into my writing flow. Like I need to like recalibrate my mind to like get back into a state. So, 3 hours of productivity, that could even that's what productive time is. Like when you're in your state of like flow for writing, you know what I mean? Like in my case anyway. And so, it's not just about the meetings themselves that might be taking up people's time. It's also about them like recalibrating, right? And getting back into their flow to get the best work that they can. So next set of facts here we have from the harvardbusinessreview.org. It's from 2017 and it's called Stop the Meeting Madness. It's an article. And they had done, they have some stats here. It says 65% of senior managers said meetings keep them from completing their own work. 65. Think about how many senior managers, how much they already have to do, and also how much items are relying on their input and being pulled away from them because we're not facilitating meetings effectively, right? I know this one is like, it just says meetings, but like it's collaboration is facilitation because facilitation is facilitating a meeting, right? Anyway, 71% said meetings are unproductive and inefficient. This is kind of the main point of what I'm saying in this whole podcast. 64% said meetings come at the expense of deep thinking. I totally 100% agree. Like, if we were thinking of youth reconciliation projects and like how complex youth reconciliation can be, it's actually quite profound that like we go into meetings about reports and things that are like very complex and just like think we should just ask people a complex question, hey, what is your take on this solution to this complex problem? Like, you would kind of want somebody to take some time to think about their answer, right? But in meetings, we think it's just so normal, right? And oftentimes what happens is like people get asked a question and they just start thinking and, they're expected to give you an answer. They don't just want to sit in silence for like 30 seconds while they think. So then they'll just start talking out loud. And then now everybody is spending the next 2 minutes listening to this person to think out loud before they get to the point. But here's the thing. 2 minutes, sure, it's 2 minutes. But if you have 20, 30 people in the room, 2 minutes of that time is either 40 or an hour of everybody else's time. So that 2 minutes quickly becomes significantly more valuable. If you think everybody in there is like paid a good amount of money, you know what I mean? Like 2 minutes might be worth like $1,000 depending on the level of meeting you're having. You know what I mean? So like really we need to think about this. Anyway, so I'm kind of digressing, but yes, comes at the expense of deep thinking. And when we don't have deep thinking, it takes up time. Anyway, next fact here is 62% said meetings miss opportunities to bring the team closer together. And I totally agree. Like, collaboration and meetings is really about bringing a team together to achieve a result and boost morale and come up with a solution together and just make people feel good about like the work that they're doing. But when we just kind of do this in a plain old way without thinking about it too much, we're missing out on a lot of opportunities, chances, to bring people together and, do something special and not just read meetings while someone's talking, you know what I mean? Or read emails while someone else is talking. All right. So next set of facts here is from deputy.com, and it's a blog titled How Much Time Americans Spend in Meetings. And it said 58% of Americans would rather go to a doctor's appointment than a work meeting. 25% would rather sit in traffic, and 17% would rather attend jury duty. So I don't know how bad these people hate work meetings, but apparently a lot. I don't think I would rather have jury duty, but nonetheless, it just goes to show that when we leave poor collaboration to it, we're just like, oh yeah, that collaboration, that facilitation thing is like people start getting resentful. If you upset somebody for long enough, they're going to like elevate their disdain for something. You know what I mean? Like I might be able to deal with my dog making a loud, annoying noise for a little bit, but eventually it's going to annoy me and be like, tell it to stop, or tell my dog to stop. And then if they keep going, well, I'm going to get really annoyed and like, they know that I'm telling them no and they shouldn't do it and yada, yada, yada. So you can tell, like, you can see like how things elevate, but I'm using a silly example of like my dog, but imagine now wasting people's hours of time because we're not spending enough time learning how to facilitate better. Hours of people's time wasted is unacceptable in my opinion. And like I understand that, you know, not everybody is a strong facilitator and like doesn't even know that this is like that facilitation is like the key to like having better collaboration. But in my opinion, if you know that you can facilitate a meeting better to get a result faster, but you decide not to because of whatever reason, other than like I literally cannot because of something else, then you're essentially saying that like I can afford to waste people's time, which in my opinion, as since youth reconciliation is so like underdeveloped and there's so little people actually doing this work, I don't think we actually have the luxury of doing that. You know what I mean? Like I think there's like a kind of a culture around some like corporate environments, government environments where it's like, oh, well, the system moves slow and nothing gets done around here. So yada, yada, yada. I just show up to meetings and it's like, okay, well, that's cool. But like, that's not how we roll in Frayed Feathers. That's not how we roll in youth reconciliation. We get results. We don't waste people's time. And we do that by upskilling ourselves outside of the meetings. Okay. So how this all relates back to Frayed Feathers, I'm going to take a sip of water first. So I'm a youth reconciliation strategy consultant because I have subject matter expertise on youth reconciliation. Like I can analyze data and I can provide recommendations on the next steps, etc. But what makes me unique is that I can facilitate the creation of a strategy. I have like sequence of exercises, a whole process that brings people from like the first state, which is like defining your visions, to creating guiding policies, to developing cohesive actions, to then developing the key performance indicators to those things. It's not as simple as just being like, hey, we're going to make a strategy. These are the components to it. Okay, today we're talking about vision. You know what I mean? Like you need to work with the people in the room. The people meaning like three or more, all likely very talented and smart people to come to an agreement based on the same set of facts. That's actually not as easy as one would expect. It's like, yes, of course, we all work in on a team, and so we all like have similar values in some way. But getting to the point where we all agree on the kinds of actions we're going to take for the next years, that's a delicate process. And if you don't know how to facilitate, then it's going to be grueling. And, in something being complicated and frustrating, complex, you're going to make mistakes. And it's not about being perfect. It's about being able to find are to make the hard parts like a lot easier. And that's what facilitation does. Like it's all the softs, it's the hard skills of designing a process that will get results. Hey, we need to develop a vision, let's do this sequence of exercises. This will get us there, you know. But it's also the soft skills of like, hey, these exercises aren't working. Hey, these exercises are frustrating or and bringing out and the content is bringing out emotions in people. So we need to like soothe out the process. We need to bring in a different exercises, swap this out because it's not working, and we need to address the emotions that are coming out in the room because so often do long-term staff members not work through these solutions or are not find a resolution when developing solutions, and then the strategy that you worked so hard to create doesn't get followed through on because people are not bought into the strategy. They don't agree with it, or maybe they just like appeased people throughout the strategy process because they wanted to get through it. They didn't want to go through like conversations of disagreement and things like this. And facilitation is navigating all those challenges, while getting the results of what you need, which, in this case being a strategy. Like, and I hope what I'm illustrating here is that like just because you're a subject matter expert on youth reconciliation does not mean you know how to successfully collaborate with groups of people. And I'm sorry, like I like I don't say that like to make you feel bad, but it's just like if you've not committed yourself to developing a skill, then why would you expect yourself to have that skill? And I think what I was very privileged to learn or to have in coming into public policy was that I did years of social service work. So I'd gone to Seneca College, I got my diploma, and then I did youth restorative justice in downtown Toronto. And, like my whole the program I was a caseworker for was community council. It's like we literally facilitate a circle with like someone who has gone through the justice system, and we facilitate it with community representatives to come up with like an alternative to sentencing of what a judge would give. And so the idea is just like it's like a circle that's more community based. And where I'm getting at is like I learned how to facilitate through practice, right? Like not only did I get like the hard skills training through college to do interpersonal communication, like, make people feel comfortable and welcomed and all these things, but then also seeing it all play out, and seeing like the emotions that get brought out, like when you're trying to achieve something together. And so, in coming to public policy, I was very uppity about like meetings and stuff because for me it's just like you just go into a meeting, hey, what's up, bing bang boom, you get what you need, whatever. And I had the language to get results quickly from meetings and just facilitating people, and being able to navigate like the difficult kind of emotions or anything like that. Like I know how to ask things in a way that's not invasive. I know how to interrupt people in a way that's not rude. I know how to redirect a conversation in a polite way. I can recognize somebody's input and not move forward on it. You know what I mean? Like, whereas someone who doesn't know how to facilitate, like, if the conversation gets derailed, they might not know how to get back in, or they might just not feel comfortable with saying, no, that's not relevant to what we're talking about right now. We actually need to refocus on this. There's so many different soft skills. And so, like, facilitation is a unique skill that school doesn't teach you. And that's why 58% of Americans would rather go to a doctor's appointment than a work meeting, is because this facilitation skill is just completely underdeveloped. So for me, like I wear both hats. I like to say, sometimes I'm a facilitator and sometimes I'm a consultant. I would say I mostly play one or the other role in the situation. Excuse me. Like sometimes I provide recommendations based on my expertise about youth reconciliation strategy and policy, but oftentimes I need folks that I'm working with to come to an agreement about something so we can move closer to the point where I can provide recommendations. I need people to like, hey, like what is your strategic direction on this so I can like cater my skill set, my analysis to what your objectives are, right? And so I use my skills as a facilitator to design meetings in a way to get to or for the folks in the room to reach this agreement. And I use exercises and tools like sticky notes and sharpies, and lists. Anyway, I'm getting too crazy here. I'm throwing everything around. Too much coffee. But anyway, and so I use these tools to create an environment where the folks who don't feel comfortable public speaking are actually going to have an opportunity, the equal opportunity to share their opinions and ideas. Like if you think of like a glacier, like here, I'm just gonna draw it here actually. Bam, boom, bam. So it kind of looks like an ice cream cone here. But if you think of like this part here at the bottom, this part that I've colored in here, if that's like the best idea right there at the bottom of the glacier, this is what meetings that don't have good facilitation are. They don't let you get below this water line here. Okay, so you're just getting the surface. But the best idea might be at the bottom of the glacier. So, whenever you facilitate meetings that use sticky notes and don't rely on people having public speaking experience, then you're creating the environment for the best solutions, the best ideas to be presented, reviewed, and then voted on for consensus. It's not just about, when I say getting results in meetings, like it's not, I hope that like me outlining all the soft skills earlier within being a facilitator and like aligning it with social service worker type vibes is like really illustrating that getting results is not about being bossy. It's about reaching a solution that everyone feels good about. It's when people in that set of stats earlier, when it said like it is a missed opportunity to bring the team closer together, it's like that. It's when you're not facilitating in a way that just has the group create the solution, and instead you act like a consultant and you just like tell them what the solution is, then people are going to feel closer when they've done something together. They've reached a result together, right? So it's not just about getting results or being bossy to get the results. It's also about reaching a solution that boosts morale by everybody contributing to it. The facilitator's role is to be an expert in the process of interpersonal communication, group dynamics, morale, and and being a critical voice in the room. Critical voice meaning like just questioning one more time before we get to a result. Like we could often be like, "Oh, that's the answer," and a facilitator would be like, "Okay, it might be the answer, but like, let me ask you a few other questions to ensure it's the answer." That's like what I mean by being the critical voice in the room. So getting results doesn't mean about coming up with a result, because anyone can do that. It's about getting the best result. Okay. So if you want to be the best youth reconciliation advocate, you need to train your facilitation skills. Creating an agenda, a parking lot, and writing things on the board is step one, not the end of it. And so I encourage folks to reflect on how effective your collaboration is in your current work. Like ask yourself, like, do you find yourself and your colleagues going through emails during meetings? Do you get through your agenda in every meeting? How many meetings spawn because you didn't get through your agenda? Do you have clear expectations before you enter a meeting? Because you should, in my opinion. Everyone should know what they're walking into in every meeting they go to. So, it's not all doom and gloom. Collaboration is broken across all sectors. It's not just your team that's like, oh, nothing gets done around here. No one knows how to talk to each other. I have no idea what this person's doing in this team. I've witnessed facilitation firms don't know what other teams are doing, and their job is facilitation. You know what I mean? Like collaboration is just hard, yo. And there's nothing wrong with needing to up your skills and just be honest with yourself. This is what I did. I was like, dang, I know how to collaborate because I feel comfortable public speaking, but I don't know how to get like results in like high level executive conversations. And so I just spent money on learning how to do that. And what I learned is it's actually everything that I already knew from social work, social service work, as far as like interpersonal communication, morale, getting people to feel comfortable, getting the best ideas, making sure everybody's voice is heard. These are core skills of a social worker, but we just use a couple extra tools and our subject matter is different. We're not supporting people with vulnerable with vulnerabilities, really, like meeting people where they're at. We're meeting people who are highly functioning, who want to who have like use of sometimes millions of dollars worth in assets, and they're able to make big decisions, you know what I mean? But like all the dynamics, all the soft skills, nothing changes between these two demographics of people. Like we're all humans. We're all just people, man. You know what I mean? Like, so learn how to facilitate. If you want the long way around, go get a social service worker diploma or something. And just remember, you need repetitions. The youth reconciliation sector is so small. So you need to learn how to get more time out of your work. And you do that by being the best facilitator you can. And you need repetitions to do this. So use the meetings that you have to flex any new skills you're reading and learning about. And sign up to my newsletter, connect with me on LinkedIn, and keep an eye out for my website. Peace.